Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. I think this could be really interesting. Preemptive, like Tower of Babel versus linguistics. Tower of Babel. It's a biblical thing, right? Quest for the first language. This is fascinating. I'm just gonna close the door. Fascinating. So clearly, all right. I'm no, what's it called? Someone who, a linguist. Um. So the first language, if you think about it, it must have just been like, huh, like just making a noise to someone to like point out, like, I'm guessing something like that. And then eventually, when those noises got a bit familiar, and everyone said, "Hey, it'd be easier if we all refer to this as," and then I'm sure that is what kind of the first language was. The first written language, I'm not exactly sure, but I'd imagine like the first language in just a language being mutually understandable sounds within a community, right? So yeah, I'm excited. Original link to the video, Native Lang, awesome channel. Right below the original link will be the link to the Discord. Click on it. Would love to have you. Let's learn. Phones away. Even if you're watching on one. I don't even know where my phone is. That's fine. Let's go.
Babel, the story of how the Tower of Babel, the story of how one original language shattered into many, was one of humanity's early attempts to explain languages. Thousands of years later, linguists investigated exactly how languages evolved. When they put the pieces together, though, did it look anything like the Babel story? Or was this just a tall tale? Investigated exactly how languages evolved. When they put the pieces together, though, did it look anything like the Babel story? Or was this just a tall tale? So the story goes, the whole earth once spoke the same language. One day they traveled to the land of Shinar, where they worked together to build a city with a migdal, a tower to reach to the skies. Their supreme deity wasn't having it though, and scrambled their language so they could no longer understand each other. This story stuck. Jewish writers speculated what the original Adamic language was and how many tongues it split into. Was it 70 or 72? A Persian contended Adamic might be Syriac, while the Syrian went with Hebrew.
What is it? This painting is supposed to depict when Judaism 4,000 years, so like 2000 BC. Isn't that when this is supposed to? And they had one of those map voice crack, those map things, even way back then.
Persian contended Adamic might be Syriac, while the Syrian was it 70 or 72? A Persian contended Adamic might be Syriac, while the Syrian went with Hebrew. Europeans claimed everything from Swedish to Irish, which apparently just picked out the best bits of those 72 original flavors. Still, Hebrew remained the prime candidate. After all, it's the language of the story, right? Details changed, but the interpretation held. One original tongue, at a single place and time, broke into a bunch of distinct languages in order to keep people from coordinating and understanding each other. Then came the 17 and 1800s. Explorers and trade routes shrank the world. Distant people discovered each other's languages for the first.
Did he say that everything stemmed from Hebrew? Because I just don't see how that's possible. What about people who crossed over into like the Americas like 15,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, much well before Judaism was around, and they had their own languages? Unless I heard him incorrectly.
People from coordinating and understanding each other. Then came the 17 and 1800s. Explorers and trade routes shrank the world. Distant people discovered each other's languages for the first time. Intrigued scholars found common patterns that shifted our view of the world's languages. Some languages consistently looked to tweak away from each other. Take Arabic and Hebrew, dhi'ib and ze'ev, dhakar and zahar. Behind these words, there's a regular sound correspondence. Where Arabic has dhal, Hebrew has zayin. These were cognates, the same word evolving differently in different languages. Comparing cognates, a picture emerged of a family tree. Walking back up the branches of the tree,
Lexical cognates are sets of words that have been inherited. Okay.
you could reconstruct the common ancestor. But testing this method in the wild world, the trails of cognates didn't lead back to a single proto-language. No, there were clusters of closely and distantly related languages belonging to separate families. English, Irish, Greek, and even Sanskrit were clearly part of an Indo-European language family. From the South China Sea to the Eastern Pacific, the languages of Austronesia all shared their own common ancestor, and Hebrew, once dubbed the original language, fits snugly among its kin, one twig of an Afro-Asiatic family.
The original written language, right?
It wasn't even the purest or best preserved twig. For example, it wore away consonant distinctions that its relatives, Aramaic and Arabic, kept. Also, change turned out to be something languages were doing naturally, all of the time. Babel still held one intriguing idea over us, though, that original language. See, reconstructions dead-ended several thousand years back. Beyond that, historical linguists started to feel like they simply had nothing to say. Nothing to say, eh? Well, tie your own hands, but you can't hold back a maverick. So you established families and reconstructed parent languages. Well, why not do the same thing again? Compare proto-languages for cognates and build families on top of families. Families are coming together. It's a super family. Enter the late Joseph Greenberg. Classify languages first, he said, then compare and reconstruct. Classify first? Yes, it's called mass comparison. Take a huge number of languages and look for patterns in them, patterns in vocabulary, but also in their typology, the comparative structure of the world's languages. You know, stuff like, how many vowels does it have? What's its basic word order? He cast his net wide and caught some huge and controversial superfamilies. Indo-European, Turkic, Mongolian, Japanese, and more belong to Eurasiatic. And
What is Indo-European? Okay.
this one drew tons of flack, but the complicated languages of the Americas are one happy Amerind family. Then, in the 90s,
See, that could make sense. I could definitely see every language on pre-colonial North and South America being from a single language, because I believe there is a theory that maybe there was some island hopping. You know, people made it all the way to Fiji, all the way to not Fiji, made it all the way to Easter Island, right? And I mean, if they can make it that far, I guess the Easter Island is kind of the last of like a kind of chain of islands, so I guess it's more open ocean. But it's definitely feasible that they could have landed in South America. But I think the consensus today is that, you know, over a land bridge, ice or whatever, they traveled into what is, you know, present-day Alaska, and then all traveled south. And so that would make sense.
the Americas are one happy Amerind family. Then, in the 90s, Merritt Rulin ran all the way. He compared vocabulary from across the globe and reconstructed 27 proto-words. Here it was, our first look at the parent of all living tongues.
Lock?
Proto-world, or proto-human or proto-sapiens if that's your style. Proto-world had words like tik, ku, ma, aqua, kuna. A decade later, he went after
Finger. Who, what, water, woman. I always, especially like who, what, and water. I'm surprised food isn't in here. And woman. But finger seems like an odd proto word.
the typology of proto-world. Apparently, our ancestors spoke their sentences with a subject, then an object of proto-world. They put adjectives before nouns. And instead of prepositions, they used postpositions.
These are all the words that I hate. So
Adjectives before nouns. And instead of prepositions,
Through.
They used postpositions. Were we finally staring into the face or the tongue of that long-lost original language? Historical linguists said, nah, and they tore into these results. These short words could easily be chance lookalikes. You can't account for borrowings. The meanings of your cognates are all over the place.
Yeah, I heard that one of the first salmon tick finger. I heard that one of the first, like, written words found in Europe, at least I think, was a word meaning salmon or fish. I could be wrong.
You can't account for borrowings. The meanings of your cognates are all over the place. Your flimsy method lets you base reconstructions on irrelevant evidence. Thus, they confidently tossed mass comparison into the bins of fringe linguistics, pseudoscience. And yet Babel's first and biggest claim lingers. The Mavericks still swear we're onto something. Are we? Or are they telling yet another tall tale? Stick around and subscribe for language.
What English can't do. After Tibetan and Japanese, nothing is crazy anymore. I'd like to learn a new language. I think Spanish would be easiest because I think I at least did a little Spanish in middle and high school. Wasn't great at it. And I did one Italian class in college just because you had to do one language class. And the only word I remember is buongiorno, and that's because it was on the cover of the book. I don't even remember what it means. Buongiorno. Hello or something? Yeah, I just don't see how there can be a proto-language, or like... Languages, I'd imagine, were born out of sounds and out of... And to say that, like, it had to be... They're acting like it's like an Adam and Eve type thing. Like, there has to be one beginning. I don't know exactly what I'm talking about all the time, as you guys know. Cool language, though. Native lang, love it. More videos coming. See you guys next time.